Guys, welcome back to the channel. Hit the like and subscribe button. I don't think Trump is running an oligarchy or a dictatorship. And if I truly believe that, especially as a Democrat, if you're a Democrat in America, you should leave immediately if you truly believe Trump is a dictator or this is some kind of oligarchy. Why don't you stand up and fight against him, or why don't you leave the country? Neither, because I guess you don't believe what you're saying.
Yesterday, the president signed an executive order ending Biden's, quote, forced, illegal, and immoral discrimination, end quote, in the federal workforce, and directing the government to serve every person with equal dignity and respect. However, liberal leaders are up in arms about the idea of merit-based society. Here's the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Al Sharpton is a racist.
We had DI because you denied us diversity. You denied us equity. You denied us inclusion. DEI was a remedy to the racial institutional bigotry practiced in academia and in these corporations. Now you want to put us back in the back of the bus. We're going to do the Dr. King Rosa Parks on you.
The Dr. King.
And The View co-host Sunny Hostin launched her own attack.
Hello.
About that, and Donald Trump saying things that this country would be a meritocracy. You're talking about a man who didn't become the president of the United States because of merit. He hasn't had he had no political experience whatsoever. He had no business experience. He was given everything that he has. He is a legacy hire. He is, if anything, a DEI hire. I didn't earn it hire.
My head is spinning. Ben, where is your Sunny Hostin and Reverend Sharpton decoder ring?
Yeah, I think you look at Al Sharpton, this is like, all right, I'm going to get my network back going. I'm going to raise some money. This is a great moment for me. I go back to Martin Luther King because he quotes Martin Luther King like he's on Martin Luther King's side. He's the exact opposite. Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that for my 4 children, 4 little children, we will one day live in a nation where we will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by their character. That is exactly what the president is now saying. We don't need a melting pot that you organize in some liberal woke agenda where you say, how many transgenders do we need? How many gays? How many straights? How many African Americans? How many Asian Americans? He's saying we're going back to merit-based. We want to look at Americans not...
No, we need to give our black and brown community more advantages.
But instead,
and women's.
Because you're the best person in the job, regardless of the color of your skin. Al Sharpton needs to go back and watch that speech.
So the way I look at this too, Cheryl, is everything that Ben just said, and I would add this. It also requires that you do your job.
Yes.
And part of your character be work ethic. All of the things together, and when you don't, they get rid of you.
Yeah.
And DEI promises that, what, you get to keep the job forever?
Yes.
Read the EO. It's right here, folks. This is the EO. Here you go. Reward individual initiative, skills, performance, and hard work.
Merit-based.
Why?
No, reward the black and brown community.
Did not read the executive order. Pretty sure he didn't. It's not about fundraising. But let me tell you something. We saw this in corporate America. We've talked about this already, guys. We saw Amazon and Walmart and NetEdge, John Deere, Harley, excuse me, that's their ticker. They all started to get rid of DI initiatives a year ago because it didn't make sense. If you look at a report from 2022 when the Biden administration actually put down these policies, and this was about, let me give you the direct quote. This is about making sure that there was, gender equality, gender markers, pronouns, transgender, nonconforming, non-binary, all of that. Another report in 2024 back and looked at if it was successful, and it wasn't. There were minor changes in federal employee and employment stats. It was a waste of money and a waste of time.
You know what really stands out to me as the former child of a military family. I don't know if this yet touches the federal government and the U.S. military part of it, because DEI is something, and a woke agenda is something that you heard Pete Hegseth and a lot of people talking about during his confirmation hearings, and how that has held back in some cases our ability to really be ready militarily.
It's such an important point, and in fact what we saw is DEI, the DOD, Department of Defense, spent $68 million on it, And that number went up to 114 million by the end of Biden's presidency. Department of Education spent 1 billion with a B. But what is so insidious to me in that executive order you have there, it begins by talking about Executive Order 13985. That was one of the first acts of Biden as president. It was a DEI executive order. We were all sitting here on this couch for 2 years talking about critical race theory. And then it was actually Governor DeSantis' office that said there's this new term, it's DEI. We weren't even talking about it, right? But it goes back to day one of Biden's presidency. He had everyone submit equity plans, every department. So you think they're focusing on China and Russia at the Pentagon? No, they're focusing on equity. This was this man's priority, and no wonder we're all messed up as a country right now.
He's taking away LGBTQ
Which is where, I mean,
and trans rights.
you get the opportunity, you have to.
We need to save America, guys. The oligarchs are back.
Institutions, including the federal.
Quickly, the oligarchs are here. The dictatorship. Quickly, guys, we need to do something. What are we going to do? Just sit here and cry about it and call them oligarchs? We're just going to sit here and cry like that for the rest of the 4 years? I think so.
Let's turn our monitors now to the White House. The Trump administration continues to drastically change.
That's all they ever do. They just call him an oligarch and a Nazi. They won't actually get up off their ass and leave the country if they have a problem with it. Because, you know, they won't do anything.
The president also issued a number of executive orders involving immigration over the last 3 days.
If I thought I lived in a dictatorship or an oligarchy, I'm actually going to fight against that shit and, you know, leave the country and not just run my mouth like they do, but...
Attorneys general in both more than 20 states have filed lawsuits to stop Trump from ending birthright citizenship so far. CBS News senior White House...
Yes!
Ed O'Keefe joins us now from the White House for more on all of this. Ed, thank you so much for being with us. Let's start with the refugee issue. How does this memo impact people waiting for refugee status? I mean, they're really in limbo, aren't they?
When will Trump go after YouTube, guys, so we can get monetized? That's all we're waiting for. Petition Donald J. Trump to make some changes with YouTube. I know he speaks to the CEO of Google. They need to have a one-on-one discussion about the censorship they've been doing illegally with the World Health Organization. We're not a part of the World Health Organization. They were the exact people censoring me on YouTube.
It is, of course, shocking. And there are undoubtedly people around the world who are calling either those American sponsors or their lawyers who may have been involved in the situation to try to figure out, is this immediate? Is it as of today? Do I have maybe 48 hours to get in? But it would appear it is immediate and that those changes are happening. And as you mentioned, a lot of the other immigration decisions that he announced or that he's put in through executive action are going to face legal challenges and may not ever be fully implemented until or before those legal challenges begin, in part because there aren't necessarily people in place yet to start implementing them, if that makes sense. So a lot of detail, a lot of sort of take a breath and really review the details of this, ask around if you're someone who's directly affected. But all of it designed to send the message that immigration policy in the United States, and for those trying to get into the United States, is changing dramatically and will be quite different than it was over the last 4 years.
Yeah, it was something that Trump promised repeatedly during his campaign for president. And I want to move to this issue real quick. CBS News obtained a memo from the Trump administration about the future of employees hired under the diversity, equity, and inclusion.
There will be none.
Those employees scheduled to be placed on leave today. And just moments ago, Senator John Kennedy had this to say on this president's latest move.
I personally don't believe that race or gender should be used to either help a person or to harm a person. In the past 4 years under President Biden, it was the exact opposite. And I think what you're going to see under President Trump reacting to the feelings of the American people is to go back.
Maybe some white people can actually get some jobs now. You know what I'm saying? Not that I don't love my black and brown brothers and sisters, but like, come on. Why did they get a job just because of that?
Put on leave, are they eventually going to be let go?
Well, first of all, Senator Kennedy is expressing one view, but there are obviously people who feel differently about that. We haven't heard yet, at least on camera, from other Democratic lawmakers who will be strongly opposed to this decision and who would argue the exact opposite of Kennedy, that, in fact, this is going to invite issues of gender and racial discrimination once again in the federal ranks. There have been examples of it through the years, and what President Biden had put in place was designed to start addressing those, though there were still examples when he was president, especially in the percentage of people hired across the government. It is still a predominantly male and white workforce, as it has been historically, and those memos and orders that were put in place by President Biden were designed to get into that and start changing the numbers, and there had been some modest improvement. As for those that are directly...
Why do we need to change the numbers?
Programs, which are not just racial and gender-based, but also to some extent socioeconomic. For example, making sure that there are paid internships instead of just a non-paid internship where there might have been one before.
Yeah, internships are complete fucking bullshit and a waste of time.
Where there are, and this is just hypothetical.
Just put a random phone number and a big company name on your resume. Boom, done. Just kidding, guys. I would never tell you to do anything cheating.
They're the ones that get put on leave and will eventually probably lose.
But working for free sounds like slavery to me. Legal slavery.
Program or enforcement is that they're probably also dealing with other elements of personnel policy, right? So they're in the HR office and they may have other responsibilities. And so maybe they're just going to be told as they're on paid leave, okay, turns out actually about 60% of your job has nothing to do with DEI. You can do that 60%, you're no longer doing the 40%. And we'll find other things for you to do or just go back to focusing on that 60%. There's no black or white, one-size-fit-all.
Guys, we're growing the Discord. I need everyone to click the link in the bio of my YouTube channel and join the Discord so we can all stay in contact with each other.
Controllers, they're people that deal with rare minerals or with tariff policy. And so what he's saying is put these people on paid leave. Once our team is in place, they're going to sort out what exactly to do with them and whether or not they still have a job or can go back to doing other functions. And that'll get sorted out now probably over the next several months. But it does mean that a handful of people who work for the federal government and agencies all across the country, 85% of federal employees are outside the Washington area, are going to be told today, you're on paid leave, your email's turned off, and we'll get back to you in a few weeks or a few months.
I want to switch now, Ed, to foreign policy. The president took to Truth Social earlier today saying he would enforce sanctions on Russia if President Vladimir Putin fails to reach a deal with Ukraine.
Breaking news, guys. CNN reporter, CBS.
Ukraine under this new Trump administration?
Well, yeah, and look, what he's saying here is... I was trying to read that while I was on screen there. Stop this ridiculous war. It's only going to get worse if we don't make a deal. And soon I have no other choice but to put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on anything being sold by Russia to the United States.
Let me see if I can show you guys this. I mean, this is just all for educational purposes, but I'll show you all the... I'm going to show you guys some legal outlets to avoid deportation regardless of your criminal history. I'm not trying to, Donald Trump, if you're watching this, I'm not trying to, do any criminal things or anything, but I'm just showing you what the news in Chicago will teach you how to do. So let me pull this up and I'll show you guys how to avoid deportation regardless of your criminal history. Only because I've had some, illegal immigrants on here, they've admitted to it, and they're begging me, don't deport me. I don't know if it's a joke or something, but there's nothing I can do. All I told them is maybe don't commit a crime of entering a country illegally. But other than that, there's not too much I can do. So I'm going to show you guys some shocking media outlets are teaching people how to exploit legal loopholes to avoid deportation. Give me one moment. Let's see if I can find this. I mean, this was just today, right? It's the 22nd today. Oh, here it is. Found it.
Okay, here we go. So this is where if you're, you're there illegally, you're a criminal, etc., and you find yourself, what can you do?
Here's what you can do, guys.
file a written complaint or call for help. I mean, is that a real concern there, that people might just be overwhelmed if this indeed comes to fruition?
Right. So in the moment, I mean, obviously people should not be putting themselves at, risk for any kind of physical harm. The idea would be that subsequently they could record these kinds of incidents. And so again, it wouldn't be right in that moment. Somebody would, have to endure whatever the violations
Let's
are.
go, Canadian
Okay, so it goes
cowboy.
on and on, and then
So no, because we're running out of time.
Guys, here's how to legally avoid deportation. I'm going to show you right now. You watching? You watching? What's up, Mr. Canadian cowboy?
And that is, does the city sanctuary city status offer any legal protection ultimately?
Missed you.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
And I wanted to ask that. So, but before we go, where can people go if they need to get? What do you think is like one of the best resources to get information like this?
Unbelievable.
So I'm not a lawyer.
Yes.
I guess there's a lot of websites that are up right now that.
where can they go to get info? It's unbelievable. Okay, here we go. So this is where if you're you're there illegally, you're a criminal, etc., and you find yourself, what can you do?
Wherewithal or the knowledge to file a written complaint or call for help. I mean, is that a real concern there, that people might just be overwhelmed if this indeed comes to fruition?
Right. So in the moment, I mean, obviously people should not be putting themselves at, risk for any kind of physical harm. The idea would be that subsequently they could record these kinds of incidents. And so again, it wouldn't be right in that moment. Somebody would, have to endure whatever the violations are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it goes on, and then.
So no, because we're running out of time. And that is, does the city sanctuary city status offer any legal protection ultimately?
No.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
And I wanted to ask that. So, but before we go, where can people go if they need to get? What do you think is like one of the best resources to get information like this?
Unbelievable.
So I'm not a lawyer. I guess there's a
Unbelievable.
lot of websites that are up right now.
Hit the like and subscribe button.
Where can they go to get info?
Where can they go to get information on how not to get deported? There is not very much.
And I'm fine with legal immigration. I like it. We need people. And I'm absolutely fine. I'm fine with legal immigration. I like it. We need people. And I'm absolutely fine with it. We want to have it. We need it because we're going to have a lot of companies coming in to avoid tariffs.
Canadian cowboy, are you down to be the 51st state, my boy?
Do is build your plant in the U.S., so we're going to have a lot of workers coming in. But we have to have legal. I'm fine with legal immigration. I like it. We need people. And I'm absolutely fine with it. We want to have it. We need it because we're going to have a lot of companies coming in to
Legal.
If you don't want that.
Let's see what else we can find on this lovely app called Twitter. Trump deportation. Bye-bye, Biden and Trudeau. Absolutely. I went to Canada not too long ago. Shout out Canada.
A non-sanctuary city, which means the city and its law city council just voted to designate Huntington Beach as a non-sanctuary city, which means the city and its law enforcement agents are going to be coordinating and cooperating with ICE and other federal agencies to fight crime, and we are not going to be violating federal immigration laws, specifically to harbor and conceal individuals that the federal agencies are after. So, again, non-sanctuary city here in Huntington Beach. City council just voted to designate Huntington Beach as a non-sanctuary city, which means the city and its law enforcement agents are going to be coordinating and cooperating with ICE and other federal agencies to fight crime, and we are not going to be violating federal immigration laws, specifically to harbor and conceal individuals that the federal agencies are after. So, again, non-sanctuary city here in Huntington Beach. City council just
Non-sanctuary city.
The country voluntarily. News Nation's Jorge, some migrants are already choosing to leave the country voluntarily. News Nation's Jorge Ventura joins us live from San Antonio, Texas this morning with more on this story. Jorge, how many migrants are we actually seeing doing this, leaving voluntarily?
Right now, Mark, it's unclear, but we are starting to see a trend. This comes as cities across the U.S. and Mexico are now bracing for President-elect's deportation operation. But his hardline messaging on those deportation efforts have some migrants panicking and some even choosing now to self-deport back to their home countries. I spoke with
If you can't handle the pressure, just deport yourself.
Some of the immigrants that he represents that entered under the Biden administration are now choosing to return home, fearing deportation under the incoming administration.
Just as recent as yesterday, they notified me that they're going to depart the country voluntarily, and understanding that, you know, the Trump administration is going to carry through on their promises.
And it's not just Trump's deportation plans that are influenced these decisions. Vasquez says it's also that Mexico is now open to accepting non-Mexican deportees. Mexico's move would impact Cuban and Venezuelan migrants the most, since those countries typically do not accept deportation flights from the U.S., but may from Mexico.
This is causing for many migrants to leave on their own, knowing that they're either going to be deported to their home country or be deported to Mexico. And they obviously, the overwhelming majority of them do not want to be in Mexico.
And my sources in Mexico tell me that it's likely that cartels and smugglers will exploit, kidnap, and extort those newly deported migrants. As of right now, it's unclear if Mexico has a plan to protect those deported migrants, Marky.
Yeah, border's about to change on Monday. At least that's what voters were promised. Jorge Ventura, thank you so much, live from San Antonio this morning.
Shout out San Antonio. Self-deportation.
Breaking news at this hour as well. President Trump now authorizing ICE to target schools and churches in its deportation raids. He is revoking a directive excluding arrests in so-called sensitive areas. Chicago's
They're hiding like roaches and rats. We'll kick down every church building to find your criminal, murdering, burgling self. We'll look under every fucking rock in this city until we find you murderers and burglars.
Displayed the same flyer. Don't open for ICE. Little Village business owners telling us it's the least they can do.
They're kicking your fucking door in, you moron. You better have an AR-15 to protect your shit from ICE.
Phone repair shop for 9 years now. A few blocks away at the Little Village Arch, a handful of activists braved the sub-zero wind chills to rally against the Trump administration's stated plans to conduct mass deportation raids in Chicago.
We've been out here since 5 in the morning, educating our community,
And why illegals that committed crimes are not criminals.
It was 22nd Ward Alderperson Michael Rodriguez, who spent the morning passing out informational flyers, instructing people what to say should ICE come knocking.
Esto le puede entregar a la inmigración.
There was, to be sure, little in terms of foot traffic in Little Village today. And while much of that may very well be related to the cold, there is most certainly fear. The executive director of the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights telling us their hotline has been inundated with calls.
From January 1st to January 19th, we saw 800 calls. But on January 20th alone, we saw over 400 calls.
Border Czar Tom Homan saying in an interview on Fox Business today,
The president's been clear, I've been clear, that right out of the gate, we're looking for public safety threats. ICE agents are out there doing that now.
Meanwhile, Governor Pritzker saying the number of people initially targeted, those with criminal records, might be much higher than initially believed.
We have heard that they are targeting as many as 2,000 people initially in the city of Chicago alone.
Now, at least one of those scheduled for today was moved online due to the cold weather. Know Your Rights campaigns appear to be here to stay for the time being, with Pilsen's Paris Elementary School hosting weekly sessions.
If you're not a citizen, I don't think you have much rights.
Garrett Tenney is live for us in Chicago. Garrett.
Yeah, Harris, those proposed changes would have allowed Chicago police to work with ICE only in cases involving a violent criminal, which is the kind of people seeing local officials claim they don't want to be here. Instead, progressives on the city council have spent the past week preparing to fight this expected ICE operation by canvassing Latino neighborhoods to pass out these flyers, telling folks to not open their doors and to remain silent if ICE agents show up looking for any convicted criminals.
Talking to people, the fear is palpable. The fear is vocalized by our residents. People in the streets are saying that they're scared that ICE agents will show up at their doorsteps, at their workplaces, at their places of worship, or places of going to school. They're scared of that. That is a problem.
Governor J.B. Pritzker could push for changes in the state sanctuary policies to allow Illinois police to cooperate in some limited way, but he hasn't given any indication that that is something he's even considering, despite repeatedly saying criminal illegal migrants should be arrested and removed.
If there are violent criminals who have been convicted of violent crimes, who are undocumented, they are supposed to be deported. That is the law of the United States and has been for quite a long time. I don't want them in my state. I don't want them in the country. If you're going to commit crimes and you're undocumented, you don't deserve to stay in this country.
The sad irony here is that by not helping to remove those folks, Democrats here say that the folks they are trying to protect, those law-abiding individuals who are here illegally, by not cooperating with ICE, more of those very individuals are inevitably going to get picked up by ICE while agents are trying to track down those who are the most dangerous. One example, Harris, during an ICE operation in Chicago back in 2018, agents arrested 156 migrants. Of those, only 74 had criminal convictions. The other half were folks who just got caught up and were collateral arrests. Tom Home and others.
Collateral? They're fucking illegal. Excuse my language a little bit, but I'm just being honest. How are they collateral? They came in the country illegally.
Our laws of sovereignty. So there's 156. Yes, 74 had committed crimes either in their former countries or in this one. But the balance of that was, from what you're saying, and that's what I want to get straight, they were here illegally anyway.
Here illegally, not violent criminals, though. And that's what the administration is focusing on in this initial set of operations.
All right, that's helpful. Garrett, thank you. Gianno Caldwell, Fox News political analyst. Gianno, look, I made a fine point of this because it matters. The last administration was trying to legalize coming across our border in many illegal ways. Whether you crawled in, you went around the security checkpoints, they just wanted, okay, well, if you got here, you're safe. That's not how it works. That's not sovereignty. That's an open door. So picking up these people along with the violent criminals, what would you rather not do? Just not pick up anybody? That's what they wanted.
Exactly right.
Today is different.
Exactly
Trump's in
right.
office.
100%. And Governor J.B. Pritzker is speaking out of both sides of his mouth, saying he doesn't want violent criminals there. But yet, people, as you mentioned, they broke the law and they came over here. It's the exact same thing. You committed a crime by entering the United States of America, and it has cost us in blood and treasure. Blood by the 100,000 plus people who overdosed on a drug, and we've seen that in recent years since Biden has taken office, and treasure with the billions of dollars of resources that are being usurped from the people of Illinois and the people of the city of Chicago, New York, and all across the country. It must come to an end, and thank God this day has come with Donald Trump in office to get the country back on its feet.
Well, look, you knew that there'd be pushback. There has been from day one with that immediate lawsuit slew against DOJ, the Department of Government Efficiency. Now, there's more legal action. Democratic attorneys general are suing across the country. They're suing President Trump over his birthright citizenship executive order. Here's a map showing the lawsuit spread across 22 states. Constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley says he believes this issue could make it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Watch.
The real value of the executive order is not that it has binding legal effect on anything other than federal agencies.
but that it could trigger a long-awaited court fight to bring clarity to this issue. It could ultimately go in front of the Supreme Court.
Your reaction?
Well, I think he has a point there, and I would never challenge the professor. I think he's excellent in his legal commentary. So, yeah, there would be a court fight in the Supreme Court. But the facts of the matter are we should be focusing on Americans first. People who built a life here, not people who decided they were pregnant and they came across just so they can have a child within the United States and get those particular protections. That's usurping, again, resources from Americans. And it's an issue we've been dealing with for decades. That's why it is imperative that Congress comes up with an immigration plan that's going to take care of all of these issues, because we've been talking about it for decades. Things need to come to a change because we have to protect Americans first.
Well, look, you and I were at events in Washington for the inauguration, one in particular where Tim Scott and Byron Donalds from Florida.
Byron!
And Senator Tim Scott. There is this focus on being able to do those big bipartisan things. Just real quickly, what was your...
Guys, hit the like and subscribe button, please. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers. We went down a little bit from inactivity, but now we're back up in the positive.
That isn't just...
Arrest made in Mexican
On
mafia.
a big crime bust, law enforcement announces dozens of arrests involving Mexican mafia prison inmates who directed gang members on the outside to commit violent crimes.
I'm going to do some more interesting live streams this week other than this classic bullcrap. We're going to show some interesting people on the live stream. We'll do some questions with some people, some European politics. We'll do all kinds of stuff. Just wait for tomorrow or like this weekend. We'll do a bunch of different live streams, guys. I'm switching up the content a little bit. More in real life streams. More in real life streams, like more streams walking around talking to people. More in real life streams. Because I understand that yeah, sure, some of my videos got like 50,000, whatever. I don't care, but I'm trying to get the more entertaining content.
Trafficking, ghost guns, and more. Our Juliet Vara joins us live with more about the defendants. Juliet.
This was a collaboration between local and federal authorities. So we're talking about agencies including the DA, ATF, DEA, the state.
Everyone wants the in real life streams, especially the in real life streams in Europe. This will be a European in real life stream, like talking to different people, maybe like, I don't know, some interesting stuff. You guys will be surprised. That's all I'm going to leave it at. Probably tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that.
Officials saying that this operation has led to the arrest of 39 violent criminals, many of whom were arraigned right here in downtown this afternoon. Charges including murder, arson, and extortion.
This case is one of the greatest of our time.
Authorities declaring Operation Los Impuestos as one of the biggest in San Diego history. The level of lawlessness, ruthlessness that these cartel and gang members displayed are stunning. Surrounded by dozens of trafficked weapons now off San Diego streets, District Attorney Summer Stephan detailed how this investigation has disrupted the Mexican mafia known as La M. It's the largest prison gang in the United States. And essentially, they are shot callers that coordinate with Mexican cartels. And they also then...
Nope, don't know what you're talking about. No clue what you're talking about. Don't be talking about those kind of people on here. That's all. I'm just going to leave it at that.
All right, let's talk California. President Trump will make his first presidential trip this week, visiting North Carolina first, then over to California, as he criticizes state leaders there for mishandling the wildfires.
So, everything was dry and it was an inferno. They created an inferno. So we're demanding that they turn the valve back toward Los Angeles. Why aren't they doing it? They either have a death wish, they're stupid, or there's something else going on that we don't understand. But we want the water that they're throwing away to be used for California.
This is Democrat Gavin Newsom spends his time Trump-proofing his state,
Yeah.
threatening the president over climate executive actions, saying, quote, if you don't believe in science, believe your own damn eyes. Fox News contributor Steve Hilton joined us.
Yeah, I believe your eyes that you're stealing money and resources from the people of California.
Oh my goodness. To sue back to make sure illegal aliens.
New scum.
Your thoughts, Steve, about about climate change, Gavin Newsom's focus in this times of crisis?
Instead of focusing on attacking President Trump, he should be asking for his help, and not in the way that a lot of people are thinking, all the money. Yeah, that's important, but more important is the expertise in two specific ways. We've got to rebuild Los Angeles. We've got huge events coming. We've got the Soccer World Cup, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. We have a builder as president. Ask for his help. He knows how to do this. We were just talking about drill, baby, build. Drill, baby, drill. We need to build, baby, build in California. Not just rebuilding Los Angeles. We need to build infrastructure. We need to build housing. He knows how to do that. The second thing is, what's holding up things getting built in California? Regulations, insane environmental regulations, labor regulations. Trump knows how to get rid of regulations. We need to do that in California.
Well, he says, I'm cutting red tape, meaning I'm going to cut some of those environmental regulations, which is driving environmentalists crazy. When Gavin Newsom and President Trump meet, we think on Friday, should President Trump say exactly what he's been saying to us to Gavin Newsom's face?
Yes, because he's right. He's right about pretty much every single aspect of this. He's right that it was environmental regulations that stopped the clearing of the brush, that made the wildfires into a total inferno. And he's right about the water. Here's a simple way of thinking about it. The way it works in California, most of the people live in Southern California. The water is in Northern California, in the Sierra Mountains, Sierra Nevada, in the snowpack. So we have reservoirs and a whole system of canals. There are basically two canals bringing the water from the north to the south. One is owned by the state, one is owned by the federal government, built and owned by the federal government. Trump, when he was last president, said, let's bring more water down by increasing the supply from down the federal canal.
I agree with that. I agree. What do you guys
The
think?
water being taken out of the delta where it comes from was to reduce the supply in the state pipeline to counteract it, which is insane.
Where's that water go then?
It stays in the delta, and that's the point that they're and Trump was saying yesterday, quite rightly, they're crazy. Why are they doing this? They really are doing it.
They're crazy.
For environmental reasons. It is to protect the fish that are in the delta.
Here's what's different now. You don't have to get some Democrats' attention or a Republican confirmed. Everybody was affected. They said when the firefighters went to the hydrants, there was no water.
Yes.
That's not a gray area. Why wasn't there water? Let's pursue this as a Democrat and Republican.
100%.
And it leads this direction. You have everyone's attention now. Would this actually push you more to run for governor?
Well, as you know, Brian, we've talked about it. I am strongly considering it because it's obvious now. We need massive change in California. Every single thing.
Hit the like and subscribe button. We need massive change in California.
And it's driven by this ideology, this far-left ideology. That's why there's not enough water. That's why you've got all these regulations. They don't want to build anything. They don't want to have the kind of energy supply. We talk about energy. We have oil and gas reserves in California that we could be using. Instead, we're importing it from countries like Saudi Arabia and Iraq.
And Canada.
Only electric vehicles will be driven there, and we'll see if anyone's going to be still living there. Steve Hilton, thanks so much. I'm Steve Ducey. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe.
And I'm Euro and Travel. Hit the like and subscribe button.
So you're standing out here. President Trump signed the pardon over 24 hours ago, or coming up on 24 hours ago. Your son is still not out. What reasons have they given you for that, and what do you think is actually going on?
Well, it's pretty easy to figure out.
We are outside the D.C. Central Detention Center, where there are numerous January 6th prisoners still being held inside, despite the fact that President Trump signed a pardon for them over 24 hours ago. The D.C. government is stonewalling President Trump's pardon. Take a listen to the story.
A lot of families have lost everything.
I love Donald J. Trump, Mr. John. I love Trump. If I believed he was a dictator, or if he was a Nazi, or whatever the hell they want to call him, whatever. I would never praise the United States president like I do. I love Donald J. Trump. I love the USA.
What they'll do is they'll
I don't have Trump derangement syndrome, but I see what you can mean though. The title does seem like Trump derangement syndrome. I'm a Trump supporter. It's okay. The title was kind of clickbait.
The conditions there are so egregious. He was actually sifting water through a sock because there's so much rust in the bottom of that prison that you can't drink the water.
Hit the like and subscribe button if you love Donald Trump. Nah, don't delete your comment. Keep it. Tell all these other people to get over the Trump derangement syndrome. We got plenty of Trump deranged people, I'm sure, watching me. Don't delete the comment.
You didn't even have a mattress. So, and then what they do, as soon as you start to get communications with your attorneys and your family, they scoop you up and they take you to another prison. And then so you'll be there for 2 weeks. You're usually a week to 2 weeks. You're in solitary, where they transition you into the new prison, and then you're there for, oh God, maybe 3 to 5 months. They ship you out again. And there was a time that on 2 Christmases ago, we didn't know where he was for like, I want to say almost 3 weeks. How is that possible? How come you can't, call his family? Nobody knows where he's at. I mean, you can't talk to your attorneys. You can't hardly talk to your family, and you can't possibly, make a defense. And then when you do get your attorneys, you talk to your attorneys, and then they scoop you up and they move you to the prison. All your notes and stuff, they take. So they know exactly what your defense is. It's like playing cards with your opponent looking over your back, looking at your hand. It's impossible to win. What has happened under the Biden regime was so egregious, so anti-American, unconstitutional. They walked all over our Bill of Rights. Thank God President Trump came in here, because not just for our patriots and our families, but for all of America, because if they didn't like you, they would do anything to shut you up. They tried to shut down my businesses. They had the local state agencies come after my companies. I got a bunch of companies like restaurants, and so they'll stop at nothing to shut you down, and I've lived through it. And so
I've lived through it. They will stop nothing.
Trump signed the pardon over 24 hours ago, or coming up on 24 hours ago.
They won't stop until you're shut down.
What reasons have they given you for that, and what do you think is actually going on?
What this is nothing more than this nasty, rotten mayor of this city that controls these facilities. They're not federal facilities, they're city-run facilities. So what she's doing, because she's all bent out of shape, because they're out, she is doing everything she possibly can to hold up the process and also harm him. My son was assaulted by a lieutenant and 5 other guards last night. He was assaulted, punched. He was sitting in the middle of the quad waiting to get processed and go out. Came in, they handcuffed him, they wrenched his wrists, put him behind him, they punched him, from what I understand. They threw him physically into his cell, and that's where he was for the rest of the night. And this is a young man who has been pardoned, like everybody else. And so this is how they're treating them. So we already have a full lawsuit filed, but this just adds to the damages.
And what has the prison told you? Have you been able to talk to anyone from the jail? What excuse are they giving? Have they given any kind of explanation to you guys?
We got the pardon, the actual pardon that President Trump wrote, and then we just got Judge Nichols, who was the judge who was, going to hear my son's trial, and he signed off on it as well. So we have that's all done now, and so maybe she's trying to, make some sort of an excuse that because all this paperwork wasn't done, she was not going to let them out. But what's happening is, we don't know when he's going to let out. I know there's not just my son, there's a bunch of other J6ers in there. So this is this nasty mayor just trying to get even or do everything she can to stonewall because, she doesn't like these people. She doesn't like Trump. And she does everything that she possibly can to thwart anything that's helpful to these J6ers and their families.
Horrible. Prosecutors in the United States are some evil people. That's all I gotta say.
Let's bring in Chicago resident Kata Truss, who sued the city over its handling of the migrant crisis. Thank you so much for joining us. First up, what was your reaction to the president's words there?
I felt good. I felt positive. I felt that change.
I felt good.
One of the things that I just want to say to Americans is pray for President Trump, pray for this administration, pray for this country. I think that if we're all on the same accord, you've heard people talk a lot about in the last couple of days about peace, about love, about protections, about the good of the country. And I want us to keep those things at the forefront of the focus as we begin to see a lot of the things that President Trump wants to do here in America, those mandates pushed. And in terms of the migrant crisis here in Chicago, we're excited. We're excited to see that something is about to happen, that there's about to be a change. We cannot continue to hemorrhage money in this city the way that we have been. I do have some concerns, though, about the fact that I do know that city officials here are holding classes to teach migrants how to avoid ICE or how to evade ICE, basically teaching illegals how to be more illegal, if you will. That's troubling for me, but I have complete faith and confidence in Tom Homan and in our current president. So I'm excited for what's to come.
All right, so you mentioned Tom Homan. He brought up Chicago earlier when he was on this program, Caught for Five Guys. This was Homan talking about how he's working up a target list. Listen.
We've been working up the target list. There was some discussion about Chicago because the specific operational plan was released. So we had to look at and reevaluate, does this raise altered safety concerns? And it does, but we've addressed that, and teams are all expected today.
Okay, so how confident are you that they're going to right the ship there in Chicago that's been dealing with this crisis?
I'm very confident. I am confident in this administration. I am confident in Tom Homan getting things done. And I am confident that the Chicagoans are going to step up. We're ready to assist in any way we can. There are those of us who are willing to work with this administration to make sure that people who are here illegally are sent back home. We want to also make sure that those criminals who came here to set up their criminal operations, again, are sent home. And so whatever we have to do as Chicagoans to assist with that, we're ready and willing to help.
Okay. Here is more from President Trump vowing to take back our cities. Okay, CF1, guys.
I will direct our government to use the full and immense power of federal and state law enforcement to eliminate the presence of all foreign gangs and criminal networks, bringing devastating crime to U.S. soil, including our cities and inner cities. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities.
All right, so he is making some big promises here. I want to ask you about what people are saying on the ground there in Chicago. We know this is a Dem-led city. We know there are a lot of, Democrat voters in that town. Are you hearing people come around on these policies, seeing the problems that city has had?
Well, here's the thing that people, I think, fail to understand about Chicagoans is that most of us are not okay with what is happening. Most of us are not okay with the migrant crisis. And in spite of what you may hear our mayor and Governor Pritzker say about how Chicagoans feel and where we stand, we are not happy about what is happening here. So we're excited that President Trump is in office. We are excited that Tom Homan and his team is coming here to help us out of this mess that our mayor and governor seem to be content on keeping us in.
Yeah, but on that point, the governor of your state says that Trump's scaring people. So is that true?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yes, he is.
Let me tell you something.
He's scaring all the criminals
what
away.
has to happen, and not that I want to help the Democrats at all, but keep in mind, people either voted overwhelmingly for Trump or they stayed home. And the fact that people did that, those 4 people who stayed home and didn't show up to vote, it was still an attack on that party, on that Democratic Party. You had triple the number of people who did not show up to vote this election. So that should say to you, people are not happy with this. So in spite of what you may hear our governor say, the people are quite okay with
What do you mean it doesn't matter, John Adams? Of course it matters. They're scared.
All right.
Get all the scared illegals out of here.
Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday.
All right, now this. President Trump signing a long list of executive orders on border security. Tony Delgado,
Listen.
co-founder of Latino Wall Street, joins me now. Tony, great to have you here. You say many Latinos that came to the U.S. legally are absolutely fed up with open borders. Are you okay with closing the border and finishing the wall?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, you can gaslight other Americans about...
Listen.
You can gaslight them about the cartels and say that it's racist propaganda, but we know...
What do you mean people don't care?
The cartels are real, that the crime in Mexico is real.
Who doesn't care?
Real Mexican, and they're going to tell you that there is no law and order in Mexico. There is no justice. The police are scared of the cartels in Mexico. And that's why all the Latinos that I know, they're ecstatic. They're extremely happy that President Trump signed the executive order to classify the cartels as terrorist organizations, because they are.
Yes.
They are. They rape, they steal, they kill, and they commit crimes. And I think the Mexican government has been unable to clean up the cartels, so I'm excited for the U.S. to step in.
Do you think that Trump has the right approach to crack down on these illegal border crossings? Will it be effective?
Absolutely.
Yes, I know what wisdom is.
There's actually human rights violations going on at the border right now. I had a private roundtable meeting with Tom Homan last week in Naples, Florida, with the Young Republicans. And he told us that close to 80% of women who are crossing the border are being raped by the cartel. Instead of the immigration process being handled by the American authorities in a humane way, the way it's supposed to be handled, the cartels are charging innocent women to cross the border, and they're falling into human trafficking, they're falling into drug trafficking, and it is really a human rights violation what's happening at the border, so we need to clean it up.
President Trump getting pushback for his deportation plans. What do you make of those plans?
Well, listen, when I had the meeting with Tom Homan, he said that there's 3 priorities that the president has given him. So, number 1 is to secure the border, right? It makes no sense to deport people if they're just going to be able to come in and continue to come in illegally. Number 2 is to get rid of the bad guys. Their focus for this next 100
People
days
care
is
about
gonna be
deportation,
on
John
those in
Adams.
jail. President Biden changed the rules a lot. It used to be the case that if you were here illegally and then you committed a second crime, like the first crime is crossing the border illegally, and you committed a second crime, that was automatic deportation. It's a no-brainer. You just broke the law. In these Democrat cities like New York, California, Chicago, they've been releasing these people. So they've been releasing them on bail back into the communities. So his second order is to go to the jails and start the deportation process. And the third is to find the children. We have 400,000 children who are missing at the border. We have no idea where they are. So his third directive is to find the children.
Last one for you, Tony, and I have to ask this. You're a former Democrat turned Trump supporter. What made you switch?
So I worked for the Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Independent campaign, and I really feel that the MAGA movement, this is not about Democrats, this is not about Republicans, this is like the new Patriot Party. It's both sides coming together, it's the unity party to make America great again. And one last thing, if we clean up the cartels, and we actually are able to stop the crime that's happening at the north of Mexico, that's going to make Mexico great again.
There you go. Well, it's a great place to leave it right there. Tony Delgado, thank you, sir, for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me on.
Amazing, guys, amazing.
With us now, NBC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, Washington Post national political reporter Sabrina Rodriguez, and former Ohio Governor John Kasich, who is now an MSNBC political analyst. Julia, Tom Homan saying that 308 serious criminals were arrested in the last 24 hours. Are these the massive raids that have been announced?
Well, Jose, just to put that in context, I had my producer poll a given month in the last year. They looked at September of 2024, and look, over those days, the highest day that they arrested was about 242 migrants in a given day. So 308 does seem to be a surge, But is it the shock and awe that the Trump administration promised? It doesn't seem to have the details, at least that we were expecting. We were expecting this to target major metropolitan areas. We don't know the when, we don't know the where or the who. We just know these numbers as they're rolling them out. So what it looks like, and we reported that this was likely, is that ICE would continue to do their operations. They would surge more resources and do more operations in the very early days of the Trump administration, and they would talk about it. But it's important to realize those numbers aren't necessarily dramatically higher than what we saw in the previous administration, and it may be very hard for them to reach that goal of millions and millions in a year simply because they don't have the funding yet, Jose.
On the other hand, Julia, precisely the fact that we don't know when, where, and who is what the administration is looking for to have surprise factor.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they definitely called off those plans in Chicago that we and others reported were going to start on Tuesday morning when those plans started to leak. They want the surprise. And of course, every law enforcement operation wants the surprise because they want to be able to arrest people who don't know they're coming. They don't want them to hide. They don't want them to be armed. That is obviously something a lot of law enforcement organizations would do. And then you have this memo that you're talking about from the Justice Department, where they're saying that it is illegal for anyone to impede an immigration officer, a state and local police officer, and that they are willing to look at potential prosecution if any of those state and local officers get in their way. It's important to remember sanctuary city police officers aren't ever standing in the way of ICE barricading the door when they're trying to arrest an immigrant. What they aren't doing is they're not picking up the phone and calling ICE when they have an undocumented immigrant that they've encountered in their operations. So it's going to be interesting to see how this memo gets interpreted and how exactly these people could be referred for prosecution and based on what behavior.
Sabrina, I know you've been very focused on this reporting in the last couple of days. What reaction are you hearing from people you're speaking to?
Right now, there's sort of this question of uncertainty of how far is this going to go, how wide-reaching this is going to be from the Trump administration. You know, we saw Trump on the campaign trail really tout this was the centerpiece of his campaign, talking about how he was going to execute this large deportation effort. But I think for a lot of people, there's still not a full understanding of what that entails, what that looks like. For some people, that definition means, oh no, he's not actually going to deport all the millions of people that he said. He's really going to just focus on criminals. For some, it's, oh, criminals and people that are taking advantage of government assistance. And for others, it is this perception of, oh no, he needs to get rid of everyone who is here undocumented, who crossed the border or came illegally. So I think in the days to come, really, it's going to see how this sinks in with the American public when they start to see really that imagery come out. But I think depending on who you voted for and where you stand politically, right now, it's sort of people are in their corners and sort of set in their beliefs of what this is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, Governor, it does indeed seem that there are political reactions to it, depending on the prism from which they're seeing it. And a recent New York Times poll found that 55% of Americans support deporting all immigrants in the U.S. illegally. How do you see this, Governor?
Well, I think Sabrina said it right. It depends what the images are, Jose. Look, I don't know any American or very few Americans who would say that if somebody is here illegally and they have a criminal record, they ought to be picked up and deported. I think there's great unanimity around that. But if all of a sudden we have, raids in churches or in schools, which is they're now saying they could possibly do, those kind of images, in my opinion, Jose, they will not stand up. It's about a pendulum. It is about the border. Frankly, I think the Democrats were too lax on that, and the Republicans are saying we're going to strengthen the border and we're going to deal with this problem, particularly with people who are criminals, and the pendulum's going to come back. But I also want to tell you that yesterday I was very affected by the sermon by I think she was a bishop in the church where Trump attended, and tried to remind him that, these people who are here, you look into their face, you see the face of God. And we need to be merciful and we need to be just in the way we go about it. And so I think that if that pendulum gets swung from too lax to way too firm and people being yanked out of certain places, I think the public will not like that. And I think that will be cause for activism. I think this could be an era of activism where people say from the bottom up, no, that is not fair, that is not just, that's not my country. But as Sabrina said, we don't know yet. It's too early, and so I don't want to prejudge it. We just have to see how this all rolls out, in my opinion, Jose.
Yeah, I was Bishop Buddy at the National Cathedral. Julie, I know you were able to get a first-hand look at one of the final deportation flights of the Biden administration. What did you learn?
Yeah, that's right. I think it was really important to be able to see that. I mean, I saw a plane that was being filled with over 100 people going back to Honduras, including some little children. Now, we don't know if these people crossed recently or if they've been there for a long time. It probably ran the gamut. But it's important to realize the Biden administration didn't talk about this as much, but they did do deportations. And often, as we've mentioned, those numbers could be over 200 arrests in a given day. Here's what the field office director, Miguel Vergara, told me about these people who are boarding this plane here. This was last Friday in Harlingen, Texas.
What we're seeing here, this is the final journey. Every individual that's getting in this plane, or that we boarded in the plane, have their day before immigration.
Nah, these operations are not a waste of money. Are you kidding me? We're getting all the illegal criminals out of the country.
Applied or it was exhausted, and it was determined by the immigration judge that they don't have a right to remain in the United States.
And the context there, Jose, is so important because he's talking about how long it takes to get to the process where they can arrest and deport them. Trump can do a lot through these executive orders, but these people are still given the right to due process. And so just because someone is arrested doesn't necessarily mean that they've exhausted all of their remedies and they'll automatically be deported. They could be detained for a long time. It's an expensive process, and we have over 8 million migrants who are not detained in this country. So it's a big challenge if they want to take this on and to try to have some kind of results on it.
And Julie, I mean, there are also more than 1 million people in the United States with deportation orders that have not left the country. That's also a different group because their case has been adjudicated.
That's right. That's right, Jose. And I often hear that being described as the low-hanging fruit. Those are the people they want to go after because they can remove them from the country more quickly.
Peace out, guys. Hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you guys. Have a good day. Have a good night wherever you're at. Peace.